I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back. Wow, what an honor for us to have with us today Craig Smith. He is the author, and he's an author and a commentator. You may have heard of him because he's serving as chairman and previously CEO of Swiss America for more than 25 years, overseeing about $2 billion in sales. And he understands that Americans want solid answers to the tough questions that real leadership begins with servanthood. He's authored a book, and his most recent one is Don't Bank on It. And I understand that, Craig, that is available free. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, Perry. Matter of fact, it may be one of the most important of the 7 books I've written, because we've come to bank on certain things happening, and the world is changing quickly as we go. So if people call 800-289-2646 and mention Dove TV, they'll actually send it out free of charge, and we even pay the postage for it.
Well, thank you, and thank you for offering that to our viewers and listeners, and thank you for being with us today. A lot going on. Of course, we're all watching. What's your take on Greece? They had a deal, then the creditors didn't like it.
Well, to put it in real simple terms, Perry, Greece is being a child. They are being like a spoiled little brat that's being told that they can't eat their dessert before they eat their dinner, and they're acting like children. The reality is Greece spends more money than they take in, and they have made promises to the public that they can't keep. For example, federal workers put in 20 years of service and retire on full salary for the rest of their lives. So if you start at 20, you retire at 40, you live to be 80 or 90, it's a tremendous burden on the system. And the reason why the world is so concerned about it, and this is why when you see that they made a deal, all of a sudden the stock market rallies 120 points. They don't have a deal, the stock market drops 140 points, is because of the connectivity in the global marketplace as it relates to how our banks interact with each other, how the International Monetary Fund, in cooperation with our central bank, works to finance bailout projects for countries like Greece. Now, in the case of Greece, they're going to need at least $300 billion or $368 billion to bail them out. Is that going to come from American taxpayers? Is that going to come from reserves of the International Monetary Fund? And the bigger question is, if we come to Greece's rescue and not make them, force them to make the fundamental changes that need to be made through austerity programs, will we next see Portugal with their hand out, and then Italy with their hand out, and then Spain with their hand out? And I can give you a list of other countries that have the same fiscal problems that Greece has. So this Greece issue is a very critical issue. If this had happened 20 years ago, Perry, it wouldn't be a big deal. But today it is a big deal. We actually put together a white paper, a research paper entitled The Great Greek Showdown, and where we show that if Greece does bite the bullet, and there is a real possibility that Greece can collapse, leave the Eurozone, go back to the use of the drachma versus the euro dollar, it will have unbelievable implications in the Eurozone and clearly affect the U.S. markets dramatically.
What's the probability of that, Craig?
Well, you know, Perry, I wish I knew. It's a complete guess at this particular stage of the game. You know, the new prime minister, the acronym for his party, the Syriza party, is an acronym in Greece that stands for the Coalition of the Radical Left. Does that give you any indication where their thinking is? And what they believe is they should get more money. They should be able to pay these ridiculous benefits. They should be able to spend more money than they make. And so I believe that the possibilities of collapse are great, only because we saw it happen in Venezuela and Argentina. We kept feeding both those nations, and finally the Western banks had to forgive their debts in the 80s. I suspect that's going to be what happens, but it's not going to come before they collapse. I mean, ultimately, look, if I go out of business and I owe you money, you're ultimately going to have to write it off. But I'm surely not going to give up until you are completely on your knees. And I suspect that's what the world banks are going to do.
Strictly looking at it from a business sense, wouldn't it be better to just let it go down than putting good money to it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Perry. That's the best thing that could happen. And quite frankly, that's the best thing that could have happened in 2008 in America. You know, this too big to fail theory is ridiculous. Real quickly, if people remember back in 2008, we were told if we don't get the TARP passed by Friday, the Singapore markets won't open on Sunday. And then we went a whole nother week. And if it doesn't get passed by Friday, they won't open on Sunday. In another week. And finally, after they put $85 billion worth of additional pork barrel spending in the bill, which wasn't necessary, we passed the TARP and supposedly saved the system. The system should have been allowed to fail. Yes, it would have been a difficult 2 or 3 years, but no more difficult than the recessions of the early 80s were, and we would have set the stage for 2 decades of great prosperity. Instead, we kicked the can down the road, and that's what Greece has been done now for over 25 years, and you're absolutely right. A collapse in Greece would be the best thing that could ever happen to Greece, and quite frankly, the international money system.
It seems, Craig, that this socialistic mindset, we spend more than we take in, is predominant. I mean, who's going to be the adult in the world and wake up?
You know, that's a good question. And look, we're no one to really preach to the rest of the world that we should live within our means. Our government spends now, to the point, $18 trillion more than we have taken in. And our long-term liabilities now, and this has been verified by Reuters and many other sources, Wall Street Journal, exceeds $100 trillion, Perry. So we're talking about numbers that clearly cannot be met. There's no way we can increase growth to that level. So we're going to have to start dealing with real issues like reductions in Social Security or raising the age element or means testing so that wealthy people like Warren Buffett aren't receiving Social Security checks. Medicare's in the same situation. We have to get back to what our founding fathers in America had, which the world started to copy and was very successful at, and that was keeping government very, very small and keeping the people really, really big, because the American people are productive, we're resilient, we can get through tough times, and we don't need the government holding our hands. You
mentioned often in your writings and in your speaking that true leadership deals with servanthood. Explain that.
Well, you know, it's a biblical principle. We know that he who serves leads. I mean, our master, you know, is a perfect example. I mean, Jesus didn't come to take from people. He came to give to people and to serve people. And I believe true servanthood, true leadership comes from somebody that wants to serve the people. I don't mean to be partisan about this, Perry, but if you look at this leader currently in the White House for the last 7 years, he has been anything from being a servant. He's been everything other than being a servant. He wants to be served. He wants to dictate. Where if he was really wanting to serve the American people properly, we would be reducing the size of government. We'd be teaching people that they don't have to depend on government for every scrap of food on their table and roof over their head. We need to teach people that freedom comes when we're able to take care of ourselves. And that's why Jesus gave us a Bible. I mean, really, if you think about it, Perry, it's merely an owner's manual on how to run your life. Right. And if you run your life and your finances and your work habits along the lines of what the scriptures lay out, you will be a servant, and therefore you walk naturally into a leadership position. That's like my pastor, Tommy Barnett. He used to do all the work setting up the Christmas trees and taking down the lights at the church. And he led by example, and servanthood creates leaders.
Boy, that's beautifully said. Thank you. Well, I wish I had you for about 4 hours. Let me ask you this. A lot of people are worried about the banks in America. It looks like the small banks are being gobbled up by the big banks, and the big banks are being gobbled up by bigger banks. Where is this going, Craig?
I'm very concerned. I wish we did have time to cover this topic. I'm very concerned about this, Perry, because our banks not only are in trouble, but they're also becoming agents of the federal government. We saw this with the Denny Hastert situation, and it was terrible what he did in his past, but he was taking money out of the bank in a way that made him a structurer. Therefore, it's a federal crime. Next thing you know, he lies to an FBI agent. He's facing 9 years in prison. I can show you honest people. Sergeant Cortazzo was serving us in Iraq and in Afghanistan. He socked away $66,000 for his children's education, put it into a bank, and next thing it was frozen by the government because it was a suspicious transaction. There's clearly a move on behalf of the banks to hold on to the money, A. And B, most people don't realize this, but your bank deposit, when you put it in the bank, no longer belongs to you. It becomes part of the capital structure of the bank. And now if the banks get in trouble again, we won't have bailouts by the federal government. We'll have bail-ins, which means you cannot take your money out of the bank like we saw in Cyprus and now we're starting to see in Greece. And you will basically become a shareholder of the bank. And 99% of Americans, now the Dove viewers know this, but 99% of Americans don't know this. And if they call the 800 number, 1-800-289-2646, I have a special report we wrote called The Secret War on Cash. It's all about what's going on in the banking structure today. So once again, if you mention the Dove TV network, we will go ahead and put that out to you. Either send it to you in a PDF form over the internet, or we'll get it to you in hard copy in the mail if you don't have internet access, so that you're well prepared to know what's going on in our banking structure. I'm terribly concerned about the banks, and I believe another crisis is coming in our banking system that's going to make 2008 look like a kindergarten class. It really will be.
Wow, that's big stuff. All right, I'm going to get you back. With that in mind, Craig, are we going back to coffee cans and money under the mattress?
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that, because there have been headlines in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Wall Street Journal that have been suggesting just that. The other day, you had Bank of America suggest to people to hold cash and gold. Now think about this. This is a nationwide bank who's telling people to go out and buy gold. Now, are you going to ask me, do I believe in dehydrated banana chips, machine guns, and Krugerrands and waiting for the end of the world to happen? Heavens no. Okay, we're to live our lives as if Jesus is coming any second, but prepare our lives for if he's not coming for the next 100 years. And so we should be well diversified. But it's funny that you bring that up, because over the last 2 weeks, if you do a Google search on that, cash under the mattress, you're going to see articles all over the news talking about literally people suggesting put money under your mattress because it's safer than keeping it in your bank right now. It's a horrible statement to make in a country like the United States. And here's the problem, and I know we're running out of time. The Federal Reserve insures $10 trillion worth of deposits. They have about 1% of those deposits insured. The other 99% is way beyond their fund capacity. Now, the whole idea of insurance is State Farm, when they insure automobiles, they'll insure 1 million cars. They don't expect all 1 million cars to wreck at once. They expect maybe 5 to wreck today and 5 tomorrow. So they work it out through the actuarial tables. But if our banks all hit the skids together, and now we've got majors, big capital pools, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citi, Bank of America, any one of those majors that gets in trouble and goes down for $7, $8, $9 billion, we could see the Federal Reserve Fund be depleted instantly, and then nobody has insurance on anything other than a handshake from the banker that if you're patient, you'll get your money.
Wow. Greg, thank you. And thank you for your servanthood and your spirit. I really appreciate you. Can we get you back?
Sure, I'd love to do it, Perry.
Okay, and let me give the phone number, folks. It's 1-800-289-2646. Order up the book, Don't Bank on It, and also get the other publications that he has there. Blessings to you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Nice being with you, Perry.
Okay, we'll be right back.